Hey folks, as we know, it's really hard for single people to adopt kids, and that's why I will never have a child.
Hey, Dad, what are you doing?
All right, let's go, Dad. You're asking Robert, what's the best thing about the last 11 years?
I think if I have to pick one with it would probably have been my adoption day.
What was good about that?
You were finding my dad,
Yeah.
and I wanted that for a little bit, I'm gonna be honest.
Did we do anything that made that special?
Probably, I just can't remember that far back.
Fair. I know we
I'm also
did.
stuffed from good food.
Yeah. Good. All right.
Yeah,
Happy Gotcha Day.
yeah, thank you.
There are some challenges to being a single parent who goes through the foster care and adoption system, but it's not impossible. So let's talk through this. So challenge one, I think really is confidence. Like going into the system, putting yourself out there, having these kids come into your home, having to like navigate all the paperwork and finances and all these different things on your own, that's scary. So for me, it took a little while. I remember when I was younger thinking that this might be a cool thing to do, to be a foster. But, I was thinking it would be really cool to take in kids who need a home and help them get back to their homes. That would be a really cool thing to do. But then I became so overwhelmed with the thoughts of doing this on my own and all the stuff, all the classes, all the paperwork, keeping up with all the appointments, all those things. So I would say that is the number one challenge to being a single parent who's going through the foster care and adoption system. The solution to all of that is that you have to find supports. So you make friends with other foster parents, there's support groups, there's ways to do that. There's a lot of things you can do. You're not alone, but only if you make it so that you're not alone. Like a lot of people will stay kind of shut in their homes. They won't go to in-person events. They won't go do things. They won't meet other foster parents. And yeah, they're alone and it's hard. And most of those people don't make it for more than about a year. I see it all the time. Okay, so challenge number two for why it's hard for single parents to do foster care and adoption is often when we come into the system, a lot of caseworkers, a lot of people really have this idea that there's this ideal family for these kids they're trying to place. And that ideal family looks like a man and a wife. It's just like, hey, this is this perfect family. This is what families are supposed to look like. This is what's best for every kid. And they're wrong. I mean, the truth is that most of the kids who've come into my home are kids who don't do well in homes with women. There's a lot of those kids in the system, and instead of trying to put them in good homes with single men, often what they do is they try and force them into homes that have women in them, and it ruins foster families, it burns them out, and it keeps those kids from having a home. So that's a real challenge, is getting enough respect, earning enough credibility in your agency, whatever agency it is, getting the respect of different workers and different people so that you can get to the point where they go, oh, you know what? That person's actually our first choice regardless of whether they would be a single person or not. Like, we just love this person. We would love to place a child with them. Okay, I want to talk finances here. So this third thing, this is so hard because it's going to be different wherever you are, but finances are a struggle for a lot of people who go into doing foster care. Most foster parents, we just aren't rich. We don't have tons and tons of extra money. I'm a social worker. Oh my gosh, I'm not rich, right? Like, come on. So as we think about that, like, there is this thing called foster care subsidy. And what it is, we often refer to it as a reimbursement, right? Because you often get it after the fact, and it helps cover some of the costs of feeding and clothing the kids in your home. I've always said that if your kids get all their clothes from Walmart, you do all your grocery shopping at like a Walmart grocery store, all of that, then it should completely cover the cost of having that child in your home in most states and most counties. So in that sense, if you do that and nothing ever goes wrong, no one ever breaks anything, there's never any surprise field trips that cost $300. On a side note, I got like a 2-week warning from my kids' school this year that there was $1,000 field trip that had to be paid for, and the first payment was due now, like within a week. It was like $1,000 field trip. Oh my gosh. Like, these things happen, right? It's crazy. But the finances, they can be a problem. So a few things to think about. There is that reimbursement that is really helpful. I know in some states there's some help with childcare. Find out ahead of time what those things are. If there's childcare help from your agency, there may be, there may not be. It just really depends on your specific agency and what they have to offer. The other thing to say here is if you do plan to adopt, some states now have things like our state has an adoption grant that when you first adopt a child, there's this payment. It can be anywhere from like $10,000 to $20,000 per child to help just kind of settle them in. So whatever it is you need to do, if you're adding on a room, like building one in your basement, whatever you're doing that you need to do with that money to make it so that you can have that other child comfortably in your home, there's that extra money to help with that. Not every state has that, but you should find out if your state has it ahead of time. I know a lot of people have missed out on that grant money because they didn't know it exists, and you can only apply for it within a certain amount of time. Don't lose that money! Money, money, money! I believe every state has the adoption assistance program. So back in the day, there were a lot of foster families who they just couldn't take kids into their homes because they had that adoption reimbursement coming in. And if they lost that, they couldn't afford to provide those extra costs for the kids. And it's not that the families were greedy, it's that most foster families were kind of lower middle class families. They were just barely getting by. So they needed that money to provide care for those kids. They really did. So then, because of that need, the Adoption Assistance Program came into play. My understanding is based on 2 states, and this is kind of my understanding of how this program works. The federal government pays a certain kind of flat rate per kid. So let's say that's somewhere around $238. Okay, I'm throwing out a number. Let's say that's what it is. So federal government pays that amount per kid who's adopted from foster care each month until they turn 18 years old. All right. Then the next thing that ends up happening is you negotiate for everything above that. And everything above that up to a certain amount. And I don't know what that amount is anymore. We'll say it's $1,000. So $1,000 including the amount the federal government provides per month, right? So up to that $1,000, the county and the state will split the cost of that. So let's say that your county and the state you're in each pick up part of that bill. Now, to think that you would get $1,000 is pretty crazy a month. Like $1,000 a month of AAP, that child's going to be a fairly low, like, how do I say this? They have a lot of special needs, okay? Now, I know people who are getting like $2,000 a month in AAP. I've heard of that once. And it's for a child who, I mean, the special needs are so dramatic. If the state were to put that child in a group home or residential treatment care, they'd probably be paying $50,000 a month. Like it's some crazy amount of money that they would have to pay to care for this child. And so in their mind, paying for the adoptive family to take care of that child, they're saving a huge, huge amount, okay? So that said, that's pretty rare for a family to get like $1,000 or more in AAP. But, you know, I mean, prices have gone up. Maybe by the time you've watched this video, prices have gone up more and maybe $1,000 is the normal. I don't know. But typically the process goes, they give you some kind of form. First they give you a little booklet or they make you go through a class. I remember the first time I went through this in one state, they're like, nobody ever gets AAP over the amount the federal government gives. We never negotiate for that unless it's like a child who is blind, deaf, and can't do anything, right? And then I go in and I'm like, no, you're going to give me money. And they're like, okay. So the negotiation, right away, I knew that was a joke. They just say that in the training to try and get you to not fight them, okay? So all that said, like, there's a balance somewhere in between these numbers for most children, okay? So if you have a child with ADHD, that's still a special need, but it's not like they're going to pay you, $1,000 a month for this child with ADHD, right? It's just, unless there's a lot of other stuff going on, which there might be, okay? There might be a lot of other stuff going on. So there's a lot of factors that go into this, but typically you'll go into that class, then they'll have you fill out a form kind of defining why you think this child needs subsidy. And so you're going to go through and say, hey, I can't have this child in after school care because there's too many behaviors. Hey, I'm called away from work all the time for this child. And I'd note like how often you're called away from work. Hey, I sit in IEP meetings for this child. I do this. We have all these extra appointments. We have to go to an appointment every 3 months because they're on ADHD medication. Whatever it is, all the additional stuff that wouldn't be something that like a normal, not that there is a normal child, but a normal child without any diagnoses, without any special needs at school that they would face. So you just kind of note each of those things and how many hours of your time, how many additional issues there are because of that. If you have to have childcare from an adult because a teenager couldn't watch your children successfully, like they just wouldn't know what to do, which is true with a lot of our foster kids, right? A lot of them, like teenagers, would just be like, well, what did that kid do and say? And oh my gosh. And you'd come home and like everything would be upside down. The food would be all over the place. I mean, like it would just be a mess, right? So you need an older babysitter who can take charge and handle kids from trauma a little better. Those are all things that you notate in that AAP process. And that's really helpful to understand. So it's not that you are trying to get money, it's that you're trying to support that kid successfully and not, you know, what does my friend say? You know, we like to eat food and live indoors. Like these are things that we like to do. So yeah, it's so that you can have a level of comfort in your lifestyle that supports that child. And nobody is getting wealthy off of foster kids. It's so crazy. I've heard there are people who try to do this, but you're not doing it. Like, you're not going to get wealthy off of foster kids. It's just not going to happen. So if you're watching this video hoping that I'm talking about money so you can get wealthy off of foster kids later, this is the part you check out. Yeah, we'll see on the little bar, because we get this little bar of who watches and when they leave kind of a thing. You're not who, like, specifically, but what, you know, what people watch and leave. We'll see on the little bar that, like, all the people who are looking at foster care for money just checked out right now. They're like, oh, all right, later. But seriously, finances are a huge challenge. I hope some of this information helps you. I wish I could tell you specifically the amount of money you would get for doing foster care in your area. You can typically look it up online. Most states will have by county what the average subsidy rate is somewhere. Often there's an agency that tracks that for people. Go look it up. Like, I can't tell you, part of the reason I can't tell you the actual subsidy that foster parents get is because I don't know you. I don't know where you live. I mean, we're pals. Don't get me wrong. Like, we hang out. This is cool. But I don't know, like, what house you live in, what county you live in. Like, I have no clue. And so I can't just go look up and find out what the subsidy is from your county in your area. Plus, then, in addition to that, it's not just your county. If you go through a private agency, that's going to be a different subsidy as well. It's whatever they negotiate with the county. So there you go. One of the other big hurdles that people don't talk about a ton is opinion, right? This is hard as a single man. It really is, because so I've lost friends over this, right? People who just are like, why would you become a parent by yourself? Like, that's dumb. Or they just don't want to hang out with me anymore once I start saying I want to do foster care. All right. If that's the kind of friend you are, later, you know, it's sad. I think I talked about it in one of the videos on my channel, like one of the shorter ones. I think it was before shorts, but one of the shorter ones. And that was that the women at the one church I went to were heroes, and they were my biggest supports. And I think they would get in the face of some of the curmudgeonly old men and people and be like, you leave that man alone, he's doing something good. And some of these older women who were like, I don't know, the grandmas of this church had my back. And if they hadn't, it would have been rough. It would have been really rough. And at the time, I worked for the church, so that was pretty cool. I really appreciate them for that. And maybe that's the trick, right? You know there are people who are going to judge you just for being a foster parent. There's too many of those Lifetime movies out there that make these, like, crazy stories out of the 1 in a million kind of things that happen. And, you know, I'm not saying those don't happen, but bad things happen in every part of society. They just do. Like, there's bad stuff that happens. But overall, most of what happens around us is it's just people trying to do their best to live as happily and as helpfully as they can. That's most of what you'll see if you keep your eyes open. Mr. Rogers used to always say, watch out for the helpers. Keep your eyes out for the helpers. When things get really dark, when things get really down, look for the helpers in those situations. And that gives you hope. I think that gives you hope. And so for us, I mean, as foster parents, we are the helpers, but often, like, there's all these negative stories. Just don't worry about the people who buy into those. There are always going to be people who buy into that stuff, and they just become all about the negative. I see so many amazing foster parents. So many amazing foster parents. Like, they put me to shame. Like, they just go above and beyond every day, above and beyond. There's no mailing it in for these people. And I'm telling you, like, they do. Like, I go, oh man, I thought I was doing good. And I look at these people, I'm like, oh my gosh. So there's so many amazing foster parents. You could be one too. You really could. One other thing that gets in the way of us as we think about doing foster care and adoption is that our kids aren't going to be normal. And again, you know, whatever normal is. But that scares a lot of people. And the truth is, they're not. I mean, 99.9% chance these kids are going to have stuff, like extra stuff that's going to have to be dealt with. They're going to be behind in school. I mean, they're going to have trauma that has to be worked through. They're going to have all of this emotion, all these things that are stored incorrectly in their brain and that are whirling around and triggered so easily until they get reprocessed and stored correctly in their brain so that the emotions aren't like lightning every time they come into them or every time a memory happens. There's all this stuff that goes on, and they're going to need a lot of extra connection with you. They're going to need to be built up. They're going to need to be helped to be successful at things for a while, and they're going to need that structure. They're going to need things, and they're going to need it. Every kid needs those things, but they're going to need it like 5 times more than every other kid does. One of the things we say about foster kids, this is actually my mom that always used to say this. I don't know if this is her quote exactly, but I use it all the time in my work. All the time. One of the things that she always says is that foster kids tend to have the same behaviors as other kids, but the duration and the extremity of that behavior are much more intense. They're much more intense than that of other children. So the duration and the extremity. So another child might throw a tantrum, and that tantrum might go on for like 5 minutes, and you have to ignore it, right? With toddlers, like often you have to like ignore it, and parents, but like you have to ignore that toddler tantrum. Okay, so that's a child who's had a secure attachment and that's had stability with their family. A foster child, well, that's not their story. That's not what they've had. And so that normal behavior, so they're going to have the same normal behavior, this tantrum, it's going to not be consoled. It's going to be going on for like an hour, and it's going to be loud, and it's going to scream and yell. And so it's the same behavior. It's still a tantrum, and it still may have been started for the exact same reason, but it's going to look a little different. Duration, extremity, those things that might be different, okay? Might be different. And you figure it out fast as a foster caregiver. Like, you might start going, oh, what do I do? He just won't stop. But you get the help and support and specialized trainings. You get what you need and you figure it out. And if you don't, let me know. Let me know. Like, but you get what you need to figure these things out, right? And that's just, it's terrifying when you first start. But after a while, you're just like, okay, I know what to do with this. And you don't look forward to it. Like, I don't look forward to that next tantrum of a kid that comes in the home where I have to like deal with it. We had one not too long ago, I'm not gonna lie, that went on and on and on. I'm like, okay, well, guess we're leaving McDonald's. And it was just like, oh, here we go. But oh my gosh, went on and on and on. But you just kind of like, and it makes you a stronger person. It makes you a stronger person. You get thicker skin. I used to be so worried about what everyone thought of me, like so worried. And then I did foster care, and now I'm like, that person's staring at me. Well, that's a them problem. Like that's about them and not me, right? Like they don't understand the story here. If they're making judgments, that's definitely a them problem. So all that said, you get over a lot of these things. You get over a lot of these struggles. I encourage you to stick with it. If you're thinking about doing it, explore, stick with it. So here's the part where I try and talk you out of it. Okay, so here's the thing. There's a lot of people who go into the system looking for what we call a unicorn child. So unicorn child is that like perfect dream child in the system. They're like 2 years old and under. They weren't born with any drugs in their system. They, all these things, like there's nothing bad about them in any way, shape, or form. Whatever the dream is that this family has, they're looking for that child. There's no such thing as a perfect child. There's no such thing as a perfect child. And I would encourage you to look for children who are a little older too. So if you're thinking of only taking like 3 and under, think about everything up to school age. Stretch yourself a little bit on that. If you're thinking about taking children who are just up through age 6, well, is an 8-year-old that different than a 6-year-old? Come on. You know what I mean? Like you can stretch it up a little bit. And one of the things I've found is that I often prefer those older children. Like there's something about having a kid who can learn to do their own laundry. There's something about having a child who, generally speaking, already knows how to take care of some of the bathroom stuff and you don't have to worry about it. There's something about not having to change diapers. Can't stand changing diapers. I'm not gonna lie to you. There's something about having kids who are a little older that it's a different journey, but it's a good journey too. And again, we've said that a lot of these kids are emotionally a little bit behind. So in some ways, you might still get that cuddly little 3-year-old type personality in a 5-year-old body. Like, you know what I mean? And I know that might be a little weird for some people, but the kid in front of you becomes the kid in front of you. The kid in front of you becomes the kid in front of you. And you just take care of the kid in front of you. You just take care of the kid in front of you. And you'll care about them. Give it time, especially for the kids who push your buttons. Give it time, but you will care about the kid in front of you. So definitely a challenge, though. I know we're all afraid going into foster care. We're afraid of behaviors. We're afraid of who will be placed in our home. And this I haven't talked about yet. It's normal to be afraid that the foster child is coming into our home and that they're going to be removed from us and put back with biological family. It might not always be family. Like, I've had a kid come in who then was put back with a coach. It didn't go well, I'm not gonna lie. Like, I don't know, that coach didn't have any of the training on how to deal with this kid's special needs. So I don't know what they were thinking necessarily in that situation, but, and those are hard. Of course they're hard. You love these kids, you become attached to these kids. It would be crazy if it wasn't hard. But at the same time, I'm an adult. I have adult coping skills. I have a support system as an adult. I've built these things over a lifetime. I've got family and friends who have my back when I'm going through something hard. I have a support group. I have a church support group. Like, all these people who care about me and who hold me when things aren't going well or when a kid goes home and I have to cry about it. Okay? Who does that kid have? Well, they have you. And then if they go home, they have that biological family. But in the back and forth, they might feel like they don't have anyone, especially if we're just focused on us. And so if nobody becomes a foster family because they're afraid of losing that child, then that child, they might go to a group home, they might go to residential treatment centers. They're not going to have anyone. They're not going to have a family. Okay? They're going to have a system. The system is not meant to raise kids. They need family. They need you. So I've talked longer than I planned to, but ultimately, I hope you understand that the biggest thing that gets in the way of us doing foster care or of us doing foster care and adoption is us. It's us. It's our fear. It's our worry. It's our, all these things, our concerns. Are we good enough? What are people going to think? Are we going to have the money to do it? All of these things. And I think we just need to let go. If we just let go and do it, man, if I had done this when I first started thinking about doing it, which was years and years earlier. Oh my gosh, I even applied once years earlier and had been accepted, and then was like, oh no, got another job. I'm gonna not do this. Oh man, and I can't imagine how many additional lives I would have touched. Right, like I'm looking at 25 or more really kids now who have been affected by my family. And I think affected in a positive way overall by my family, right? Like, they've had a place, they've been safe, and a lot of them have been sent back to their homes with their biological family, with that family having had time to heal, repair, recover, whatever it is. Wow, there could have been more. And in all the days that you sit there going, am I good enough for this? Well, there goes a child. There goes another one. There goes another one. There goes another one. Let's go, Dad.